Hello everyone. So let's do one more round of satsang. Ya kundendu tushar har dhavala, ya shubhra vastravrita, ya veena vardand mandit kara, ya shvet padmasana, ya brahmacyut shankar prabhriti devai sada vandita, samam patu saraswati bhagavati nishesha jangyapaha. So, I hope you are all doing well. So today, now we'll talk about a very important and interesting topic, which is Thousand Petal Lotus, the Sahasrara. You see, in our subtle body, we have 6 centers, and then we have Sahasrara, Thousand Petal Lotus on the top. And the shape of our subtle body is just a mini scale of what is described by Sri Ramanuja in his work Vaikuntha Gadyam, that the shape of this whole universe is like the shape of an elliptical egg. That's why it's called Brahmand. So if you are interested, you can read that Vaikuntha Gadyam by Sri Ramanuja about the description of Vaikuntha. But in our subtle body, Sukshma Sharir, we also have 6 center, and that's Sahasrara. And the shape of our subtle body is also pretty much like the egg. That's why it's called Brahmand. So what's the deal with that Sahasrara, that 1000 petal lotus? It's amazing. And this is going to tie into my last 2 videos. I really encourage you to watch my videos in a sequence, because I'm going to build upon one video after another, because I'm kind of laying out the most fundamental, you can say spiritual science, but this is how this whole reality works. And that is not thanks to me, but thanks to Sri Ramakrishna, who is no other than that Krishna, that Narayana. So if you watch my last 2 videos, one is about weeds. The weeds is the most, I would say, pure essence of this whole reality. And this is the most fundamental property of anything that we can observe. As long as we are in this virtual reality, sentient virtual reality, any observation has 2 fundamental property, Sheet and Usn. And that is called the weeds of that observation. And then the second video, the one after that, I talked about a little bit about the design of the subtle body, where in their story from Bhagavatam that Sri M has been reciting in Vrindavan. And there he talks about this Gandharva. His name is Chandravaga. And he takes over the body with 360 attendants and 360 maidservants. And those things are all interrelated. So at a very high level, how it works is, see, in our subtle body, and beyond that at the causal level, we are all living beings are supplied by certain amount of what is called Amrit or Bindu or Ojas, Para-Ojas, Ambrosia, holy water, different traditions. And an amount of that is different for different species. And that's why no matter what we do, the Vedas have told us that 100 years is our limit, even for the Brahma. So we are given our battery pack for 100 years. And it all depends on us how we use that that supply of Bindu during that 100 years. The best use of that is to get enlightened, to solve this mystery of our existence as a Jeeva, as a being. So think about this. This is how it works. Each one of us, each living being is a separate unit. Think about an application or a software, or in today's world, LLM, large language model. And few years from now, each one of us are going to have our own version of, let's say, LLM, a large language model on our own phone. And we can all program it as we want to, as we need. So think about each one of us Jivas as being, a individual program or individual large language model, LLM, AI. And our objective function for each one of us is to realize God, to realize that Brahman, realize our Atman, which is nothing other than that Amrit, that ocean of Amrit, that Shiva is basically Brahman, which is no other than Shakti, what Sri Ramakrishna taught us, that Brahman is equal to Shakti. And that's why it's a puzzle, that Adya Shakti of Narayana, she divides herself into innumerable smaller units, and then she creates this amazing puzzle. Each one of us are different, and she alone, which is the Adya Shakti of that Krishna, that Narayana, that Sri Ramakrishna, is what is supplying us with that consciousness. And the puzzle is that Shakti has to move through that sixth center and move through that Sahasrara, that thousand petal lotus, to go to that ocean of Amrit, that Satchidananda, that Shiva, that Brahman. And then that unit of that, that puzzle, that individual Jiva is free, because that puzzle has been solved. That objective function has been achieved. And in the meanwhile, while that objective function is not achieved, inside our subtle body, Mother is there, but then there are so many other smaller individual conscious units like Buddhi, Man, and so many others. And each of these, I would say, elements of our subtle body, they are basically moving between what is called Tejas and Rajas, which is the same Bindu, same Amrit gets divided. There is a process for that into two fundamentally different property weeds. One is called Rajas, which is Sheetal, like cold, and other is Tejas, which is warm. And when Man or Buddhi or other conscious units, they go towards Sheetal, they feel good, it's like. And when they go towards Tejas, it's dislike. And that's Dvand that Krishna talks about in Gita. That's how the whole world works. We keep moving between like and dislike, like and dislike, like and dislike. But that is not the goal. The goal is to move beyond this like and dislike, and for us to make way for the Mother, so that the Mother, Jagdamba, that our Atman can go to Shiva, that Shakti can go to Shiva, and that objective function is achieved. So this is like the big picture. But what happens is, inside that subtle body, inside that Karan Sharir, even beyond the Sukshma Sharir, Karan Sharir, there is a continuous supply. There is a continuous supply of that Amrit. Otherwise, that our Atman, Jagdamba, what is also called Kundalini, she won't stay inside that Karan Sharir. She'll just leave, and that is called death. That is Mrityu. Yogis know it very well, that as long as there is a supply of that Bindu, that Amrit, the Jiva is alive. As soon as Bindu runs out, supply of Bindu runs out, the game is over, and that Jiva is dead. Atman moves on to the next body. So the design of our Karan Sharir is, basically it's a plumbing, it's a plumbing of distributing that Amrit continuously throughout that elliptical egg-shaped our Karan Sharir. And I described the design of it in the video about the design of mind, and it is like a Russian doll. And the way it works is, it starts filling all the way from Muladhara. If you look at the Russian doll, you start filling not from the outer doll, but from the innerst, the one which is at the center. And then when that one gets filled, then automatically it spills over to the next one. Then Swadhisthana, then Manipur, then Anahat, and that's how it goes. So that is the plumbing, right? And you can see in our Vedic tradition, pretty much all our, I would say, daily activities, the way of our Vedic lifestyle, our rituals, our tradition is to achieve three things. One is protect that bindu, protect that Amrit, and I'll tell you in a second how. Second, to fill our life, fill our subtle body, fill our life, our house, our occupation, everything with shitalta, with coolness, so that we have an enjoyable, peaceful, joyful 100 years. And the third is to keep our man, our mind, at the highest possible center throughout the day, throughout the life, because wherever the man is what powers the thoughts. And then our buddhi, if buddhi is strong enough, buddhi can veto it. But most of the time, buddhi is not strong enough. So wherever man is located, whichever center, it creates thoughts, desire, likes and dislikes, and just drives the living being to live their life. So if man is situated very high, typically they are good sattvic thoughts, and it leads to good peaceful life for individual, for family, for society, for the whole world. So that is the purpose of our Vedic tradition. Every ritual, tradition, the way we live our lifestyle, morning routine, daily routine, annual routine, these are all designed. They are not just mental fancy of someone. They are all designed based on this very fundamental spiritual science that I'm talking about. I'll give you an example. So people say, okay, you have to wear Yagyopavit, Janev, sacred thread. The purpose of that? The purpose of that is to protect that Amrit, that Bindu. So you'll say, how can a thread protect and preserve the Bindu? It can, because the Bindu, that Amrit, is even more subtle than that thread. So you will see, by tradition, it's not you just, people these days make a big status symbol about wearing the thread, that sacred thread, that Janev, but no one uses it. It's like buying a phone and then just leave it in the box. Don't use it. What's the use? It's just a status symbol. So, see, when people, let's say men, I'll come in a second why women don't have to wear that sacred thread. So, when men go to restroom, they have to use that sacred thread, and it's a different location for different use. So when people go, in order to protect loss of that Amrit Bindu from Muladhara, one has to wear that sacred thread like a mala, like a garland, because the plumbing, the line that goes to the Muladhara is at the back of the neck. But then if one has to protect that Bindu, through Swadhisthana, one has to wear that on the right ear, because that plumbing, that line goes through that right ear or behind the right ear. See? These are not just mental fancy. They are based on the real plumbing at the causal level. Do people do it? I've seen some people do it. When I was growing up very young, I saw some people do it. I don't think people these days do it, or I don't think people even know it. And most of the real information has been corrupted by bogus people anyway. But we have to fix that. So you see, this is so ingrained, the protection of that Amrit, that Bindu in our culture, in our tradition. So we should not be shy about it. We should, if possible, one should practice it. So then people say, okay, there is no equality. Why women don't have to wear, they are not allowed to wear sacred thread. See, this is the reason. The Sukshma Sharir, the subtle body of woman, is very different from that of men, because, see, woman is supplied by tremendously more amount of that Shitalta, and that plumbing is also very different. Why? Because in the woman's body, another Jeeva has to be produced, and that requires tremendously more amount of that Amrit and also Shitalta. So in a way, woman's body is already, I would say, endowed with lot more of that. That is one of the reasons why, and it's also a lot more pure than men's body. And that is the reason why in our Vedic culture, women are revered so much, because they are the source of that Shitalta, that purity and that Amrit, that coolness to the whole society, to the whole world. And you can see that in today's modern material-based science. One is, if that Shitalta, that extra supply of Shitalta is not used properly, it can create problems. Let's say if you are watering your lawn too much, that watering can create beautiful flower garden, but it can also create a lot of weed. And we see some of that happening today. If you look at the autoimmune disease data, let's say for the US, it's amazing. It's actually sad story, because more than 80 million people have autoimmune disease, some kind of autoimmune disease in the US. It's staggering. It's more than 25% of adult population. And vast majority of them are women. It's kind of strange, People don't understand why, but this is the reason why. Because in a woman's body is supplied fundamentally, at the very fundamental level, by a lot more of that rajas. And also plumbing is very different for that Amrit. They are already in a much better position than men. That's the reason why they don't have to wear that sacred thread. Other data you can see is, modern science is just coming to this. And because that plumbing is different, woman's body is fundamentally different than men's body. But what's happening in this material-based pharmaceutical industry, that most of the trials for new drug discovery that they do, you will see most of the patients are men. And now only they are trying to realize that actually this is not right thing to do, because many medicines which are effective on a man's body is not that effective, in the case of a woman patient. And now actually companies are taking actions where they are including more and more women in the trials. So these are the real reasons why we see actually the evidence of that, even in the modern material-based science. So that was the three things, right? We talked about the three basic things our Vedic tradition. One is keeping the mind at the highest possible center. Second, filling our life with that Shitalta, that coolness. Third, preserve that Bindu, that Amrit, because that is life, and that leads to freedom. Okay, so now going back to the main topic, which is Thousand Petal Lotus, the Sahasrara. So I talk to you about the way the plumbing works. You have supply of that Amrit to all the centers directly. And then you also have kind of that Amrit gets, I would say, split into Rajas and Tejas, and that gets also supplied to different centers. But then at the very top, you have this Thousand Petal Lotus. And that Thousand Petal Lotus is basically a distribution system. It's a distribution plumbing system where Amrit is supplied to the entire body at the most outer level. Think about every petal, with sometime you have like 6 lines coming out of it. Lines, I mean, I would say water line, or 10 water lines coming out of it. And then it goes all through the body. And think of the body not like our human body, but think of the body as a elliptical egg-shaped surface. Sri Ramakrishna talks about that this body is just a pillow cover. That's actually, it's not the simple thing that he's saying. He's giving us the design that the subtle body, Sushma Sharir, has a physical existence in this body as a very thin, I would say thin layer, going through this body in the shape of an elliptical egg. And Sahasrara, which is at the very top, is a distribution, is a plumbing system to distribute that Amrit throughout the body, throughout the very outer layer. So then how that 360, how does that 360 servants and maid servant of that wicked Gandharva Chandrabhaga comes into picture? So what happens is, that 360 is not a random number. That 360 is the number of lines coming out of those petals. Petal is literally kind of a shape. It goes round and round and round. But as I said, in some petal you will have 6 lines coming out. Some will have 10. Some will have 4. So that 360 is the number of lines coming out of that, those petals. So think about if you pour a bunch of water, water will go through all those 360 lines to different points, in the subtle body. I checked online and say, people have just made up story that 360 is somehow related to 365 days in a year. That's a bogus, man-made. Some Pandit just came up with this idea, cool idea. No, that's wrong. That 360 is a very precise number. Okay, so then why 360? 360 maid servant and servant. So this is just a way to tell us that, look, in the subtle body there is a design to keep us locked, So what happens is those 360 attendants and maid servants, they are basically ways to lock up, those distribution channels. That's how we get old over time. So as we spend that Amrit through our different actions, what happens is, think, if it fills from that Russian doll, it fills from the very bottom. But if you turn the tap on and the water runs out, then it will get empty up, from the very top, right? So that's why you see when people start to have gray hair, it starts from the very top. And so as soon as it gets empty, that Thousand Petal Lotus gets emptied up, those distribution centers gets taken over by, those, that Gandharva, basically. And then why you have plus and minus, why you have maid servant and attendants, and they're also different in color. What happens is they are of different virya, they have different property, and they're attracted to each other. So what happens when those two, come to that one of those lines, what happens is they have this natural tendency, like magnets, different poles of the magnets, to get attracted to each other, and they lock it up, and that's how it gets cemented. And that's how it gets. It's literally like a different magnetic pole will work, or different polarity, of more actually precisely like a magnetic polarity. So over time, as we go through life, that distribution plumbing gets plugged up, and then our body starts to get less and less amount of that Amrit, and we start to feel little old. Some illness comes up in the body, and we age over time. Just exactly like in that story in the Bhagavatam. It's a very precise story. That king did not realize until he was probably 50 or so that this wicked Gandharva had taken over his system. Because you don't realize when we are young, we only realize after a while that, oh my God, our system has been taken over. That's just the, I would say, nature of this game. So that's why it's so difficult, to break through it. So I'll talk more and more about it, but that is the it's not that complicated actually, so it's very simple. You have supply of that Amrit, that Parao, just from outside. Then there is a plumbing system, and then you have a system of that for those 360 lines to get plugged up. If we are not careful in our life, those get plugged up, and then we get locked inside this Sushma Sharir. It's as simple as that. And you can see this has been talked about, when in my last video I said, there are many, you will see songs like Pile Amiras Thara Gagan Mein Jhari Lagi. That means drink that flow of nectar. There is this rain in the sky, and literally that's what it means. It's like a sprinkler coming up. So you will see, can you feel it? Maybe some yogi can feel it. If one can really do this chit suddhi, the emptying the inner subtle body to a level which is almost like 1 in a 300 years, I would say, or maybe I would say 1 or 2 people in every 100 years. If you could do that, then you will feel that spray of that Amrit inside your body. Like if you go stand in the rain or drizzle, you will feel water falling on your skin outside. But it's possible for you, anyone who has a subtle body, to feel the spray of that Amrit inside the body. It's hard to believe, but it's true. And these are the facts that yogis have documented over time in those songs like Pile Amiras Thara Gagan Mein Jhari Lagi. I mean, these things have been kept secret, but thanks to Sri Ramakrishna, we have to bring it to everyone so that people, have more confidence and conviction in our own tradition. It also shows you how difficult it is to get Brahm Gyan. It's at some point, towards the end of Sri Ramakrishna's life, he was a bit miffed at Vivekananda because of more like rowdy behavior of Vivekananda and his attitude. So he kind of told him in a gentle but in a stern way that, look, it's pretty easy. Not easy, but going to the sixth center and then, or I think his words was being at the top of the steps and going from there to the roof is quite difficult. Just because one goes to the top of the stairs, that doesn't mean one can easily go to the roof. That means if one can go to the sixth center or fifth center, Visuddhi center or Agya center, that doesn't mean that one can really get Brahm Gyan. Because to get true Brahm Gyan, one has to exit through that Brahmarandra. And then one has to come back. And see, even after that sixth center, Agya chakra, one has to, by one I mean that Atman, that Kundalini, it has to move through those 360 points, those so many petals, to finally reach Brahmarandra and at least get out a little bit to feel that joy of that Satchidananda, that ocean of Amrit. It's not that easy. And what happens, just because the way we live our life, even the people with great sanskar, the way we live our life, those petals gets literally cemented by, think about those locks, 2 poles of the magnet. It's very, very, very difficult to, once they get locked up, it's very difficult to open them up. But the secret is in the Gita. I'll tell you in a second. But because it's so difficult to open it up from inside, that's why it's very, very important to have a relationship with someone like Sri Ramakrishna, who is no other than Krishna, because they can open it up from outside. That's why it's so difficult and so extremely rare for someone to get true Brahm Gyan. So that's why the easiest way to get Brahm Gyan is to pray. To pray to that Narayana, that Krishna, that Sri Ramakrishna, to Chaitanya, to Jagdamba, to Ma Sharda, to Shiva. Easiest way is to pray if you really want to get Brahm Gyan, because then someone will open it up from outside. Okay, then what's the secret? The secret is this. What Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that if you want to live through Brahmarandra, what yogis do? They practice celibacy all through the life. You see, the way it works is, one has to fill that elliptical egg all the way from the bottom to the top. And what happens as you fill that body with that ojas, that Amrit, that lock where you have two opposite sides, right? Sheath and ocean, they kind of dissolve away. Because as soon as they come in contact with that ojas, that Amrit, that Bindu, they lose their polarity and they effectively melt away. So that's the way to, one, keep it unlocked, and second, if it gets locked, you can unlock it through celibacy. Not just for a few days or few weeks, lifelong. And that was our Vedic practice actually, that was our Vedic lifestyle. It's not easy to be Brahmin. It's not easy to be Brahmin. Brahmin means control of our senses, not just a family name. So you can see even in today's world, there are some people who practice it. So if you see, there was this sadhu, his name was Karpatriji Maharaj, right? Karpatriji Maharaj. He was the guru of this head of Jagannath Puri Govardhan Mutt, Nishchalanand Saraswati. And this Karpatriji Maharaj he was like a Vedanti, Mandukya Vedanta, Brahmgyani sadhu, very good sadhu. But he was also a great yogi. And every day, I think before lunch, before noon, he used to do headstand, like Sirsasana for 2 hours. And he used to recite while in Sirsasana, I think Chandi, every day. And basically what they are doing is, they are bringing that bindu, they're inversing that elliptical egg upside down. And they're making that bindu, that Amrit, flow from bottom to top. And that way they are unlocking, that locking mechanism of that Chandrabhaga Gandharva, that 360, Thousand Petal Lotus. These great yogis, they know it. They are unlocking it every day, not allowing those locks to settle in. Because once they settle in, you can't open it without the grace. And you can see it in the life of other sadhus. You see, the sadhu like Swami Ranganathananda, who was head of this Ramakrishna mission, he had stroke. He was definitely, I don't know if he was Brahmgyani, probably not, it doesn't look to me, but he was definitely quite advanced sadhu. But in the end, he had a stroke. You know why he had a stroke? Because he couldn't open the lock. And because he was this Mandukya Vedanta, he didn't have much faith in Sri Ramakrishna. If he had faith in Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna would have opened it from outside, because from outside it's just easy. Outside Sri Ramakrishna has tremendous, vast amount of access to that Amrit. He can just use few spoon and just open it from outside. That's how it works. But in his case, he had a stroke. That's how he died. But Karpatriji Maharaj, he didn't have a stroke. He had this, both are Vedanti, look. See, both are Vedanti, both are Mandukya Vedanta. But how they live their body is very different, because that's based on how they live their life. See, it's amazingly interesting, yet you will see it's amazingly simple. And one takeaway I urge you to take is, have deep conviction and confidence in our own Vedic tradition, because this is the most, I would say, fundamental fundamental truth of our reality. Our Vedic tradition, is designed to make us live 100 years in great joy and peace. And at the same time, also leave this body, you're not stressed, by in an okay way, in a content way, thinking very well that yes, that game was pretty well, that was played well, and now I'm going to Jagdamba, going to that Rama, that Krishna, that Narayana, that Shiva. There should be no fear. Should be great joy while we are here and great joy and bliss after we leave. That's our Vedic tradition. And that's why we should first, we should have just deep confidence and conviction in our own tradition. That's what I would say. And unfortunately, over many hundred years, for factors from within our tradition and from outside our tradition, many of these real truth, real understanding has been either corrupted or just they have vanished. But we are going to bring it back thanks to Sri Ramakrishna. And that's what will give us that confidence and conviction in our tradition. Okay, so I'll stop here and we'll talk more. You will see over time that it's not that complicated. It's quite simple actually. That's what makes it so interesting, because to design a very complex universe like this, it has to be a very simple mechanism, because otherwise it will be a very complex system to design it. And you will see as I talk more and more, it's exactly like the way the AI, artificial intelligence, is working. Exactly like that. It's a carbon copy. So in a way we can predict the future, because at some point it has to evolve into another world inside this world. Okay, that reminds me of ending it at this note, if I can remember. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Yeah, I think I remembered. All right. Okay then. Take care. We'll talk again. Okay then. Bye.